if you're not like, it's a great place to start and to just like add people, add me. Like I talk to all these people that reach out to me all the time. But I'm from Michigan. I went to U of M, and I just wanted to give a quick overview of my career. I worked in Major League Baseball for 6.5 years. I was on the sponsorship side and business development, which I'll walk you guys through. I then moved to Los Angeles and I worked for the LA Clippers in the NBA. So it was 2 years at the Clippers. And then I moved over to esports. So I started in esports in 2018. They were hiring a bunch of esports people, sports into esports, because I wanted to build esports like traditional sports. So I started at Gen G. Is anybody, by show of hands, like familiarity with Gen G? A few-ish. Okay, Gen G is one of the largest professional esports teams. We have offices in Korea, China, and in LA. I was the first employee in LA. I traveled to Korea and China for international business. I eventually was the chief revenue officer, which means I was in charge of all revenue, sponsorship, ticketing, prize money, influencers. And then most recently, I was the CEO of Immortals. Show of hands, people who are familiar with Immortals? Okay, cool. So that was kind of my career from like start to bottom. I did an internship for Arnold Palmer, and just kind of like some like notes about me. This is just like a fun photo of me and my family. I'm here on the far left. And this is like my like kind of like life stories. Like I started working for Arnold Palmer. I ended up going into law and working for Baker Hostetler. I worked on the Bernie Madoff investigation. My claim to fame was I was on the corner of 60 Minutes for 1 second. That's me. That's like an actual photo of like a large television screen. And I went to work at Major League Baseball Advanced Media. So for people who are out there interested in baseball, in 2000, the owners of Major League Baseball decided that they were going to centralize all the online rights because they're very nervous that teams like the Yankees would have big advantages over teams like the Royals. So I worked at the league office on the digital side, and I was able to leverage myself as like a young person. And I recommend this to other people, like embrace the things that you might think people 15 and 20 years older than you don't understand. So at the time it was Twitter and Facebook. Like those were the two biggest things. Eventually it was Instagram and connected TV, where people like didn't really understand it. And they were like, oh, Jordan, you're young. Like you're just coming out of college. Can you help us build this Facebook game? Or can you help us get MLB.TV live streaming baseball on the Roku and Xbox and PlayStation? And I was like, sure. And I don't even know if I like necessarily knew how to do it, but I was just hungry and I just saw different opportunities and I went for it. And through those different opportunities, I was able to parlay it into a sales role. And one thing that I did at the sales role at MLB was I worked on bringing brand sponsorships and trying to come up with fun ways to integrate the brand. So one example of that is on the Domino's and Domino. So we called the CMO of Domino's, and we were noticing on Twitter when there's no hitters in baseball, so when a pitcher's pitching and nobody gets a hit and it gets towards the ninth inning, people are using a hashtag called no. So we were like, well, why don't we just kind of put a spin on it called the Domino No? We'll use that hashtag on Twitter and we'll give away 25,000 free pizzas if a no-hitter happens. So we were able to take Domino's and create this moment on social and on TV where people were talking about Domino's during this feat of in-game no-hitters. And it was a huge success. It happened for 4 years. Major League Baseball made millions and millions of dollars on this cross-platform. So much so, the head of Papa John's came in 2016 and said, I'm going to pay whatever it takes to get rid of the Domino No so I can be the official for Major League Baseball. So it turned into like a 10-year run for MLB in the category by creating a fun idea. And one thing I would say by this is like so many really good ideas are lost because people either are scared to say them or they say them to a friend or something and the person doesn't like help build. They just say it's stupid or turn it down. Like this could have been turned down by so many of my bosses along the way. And the fact that they like embraced the somewhat silliness of it, but the actual execution of it turned into $1 million win, millions and millions of dollars win for Major League Baseball. So that's one thing I would think about too, is like embrace these kind of out of the box ideas. And if someone, brings them to you, don't just shut them down off the bat, try to work with them, be a yes and person. It trended worldwide. We gave away 25,000 pizzas in under 2 minutes. And we were like 99th percentile in every possible third party measurable. We also did 5 Hour Energy commercials with Bo Jackson. So 5 Hour Energy was a client of mine. We brought in Bo Jackson and we did like a whole suite with Frank Thomas and Jose Fernandez, all these baseball players. We did all these commercials. This is a really fun one because on the day of the shoot, The guys, the extras who are supposed to be in this business meeting with Bo Jackson didn't show up. So this is actually me and my boss at the time. And if you look at it on YouTube, this guy Terry was my boss. We weren't prepared to be in the shoot. So Bo Jackson's in a suit and Terry's in jeans. And someone on YouTube said, "What kind of asshole wears jeans to a meeting with Bo Jackson?" So we got like a ton of laughs out of that. But this became a really cool thing because at the time, like branded content and connecting brands and celebrities started to be big. So I kind of saw that happening, and we were consistently going out to different companies and saying, okay, if you give us a media buy, so you spend a certain amount of money with Major League Baseball, we'll then take a portion of that. We'll contract with the athlete. We'll do the production. We'll do the shoot. We'll help you place the media. So for 5 Hour Energy, they were able to get this credibility of working with baseball. They eventually did MLB flavors. They had their logos on pack, and they would get to work with big name stars like Bo Jackson, who at the time had an ESPN documentary coming out about him. From there, I went to the LA Clippers. I was really interested in the NBA, obviously being very social and like focused on the younger demographic than baseball. And Steve Ballmer took over, so he was like very like wanted to get his own arena and tech focus. And I did this large deal with Amazon Web Services. It's for the official cloud and machine learning partner for Clippers core division. So you guys know like ChatGPT and AI is just like completely taking off. AWS and their cloud services actually powers a lot of things behind like stat generation, NBA and NFL. If you're an NFL fan, you might actually see it. Now it's huge. They do like StatCast on Sunday Night Football, and they show you like the window. This is like before all that. We were doing it in the NBA, and I worked with them on MLB too. So like this, I think, is a really good example of like I worked with the client at Major League Baseball. I kept a really good relationship with them, and I was able to help. There was a reason it made sense because we were using their product, but they followed with me to the Clippers, and we did a deal there as well. So like everybody that you talk to throughout your career, you want to make sure that you retain a good relationship with them because they can help you as you move forward, and they'll stick with you if you do a good job with them. So now let's get into esports. So when I got to Gen G, we had nothing. It was the first employee in LA. We were a Korean company. And so we wanted to do something really big. So we started with an all-women's Fortnite team, and we launched it. And this is the first ever all-women's Fortnite team. And Bumble came on as the presenting sponsor. And I had to do like everything from top to bottom on this. From like we recruited the players, we called their parents, we like flew them to LA to like let them know that we were for real. We paid for like all the housing and expenses. And then we went to Bumble. We're like, we have this team. They're going to be really good. And we want you to come on as, a female-led company. And Bumble, as you guys know, is dating and business connection app, where historically women make the move first. So they had like that type of tie into the team. And it became this huge partnership that really put Gen G on the map. It created this whole team of 10 women influencers for Gen G. And then the team went out and won at TwitchCon. And Tina, who's on the bottom right here, became the first ever woman to win a co-ed TwitchCon event in Fortnite. So we were able to put this together in about a year and a half, and we were really proud of the way it came out and what it did for the industry. Now, like, these types of teams are a dime a dozen. Everybody has them, which is really great. But at the time, like, we were one of the first and kind of helped open the floodgates really for people to start doing these types of teams and get sponsorship around it. And now the women's scene in gaming is growing really quickly. We also did a ton of stuff with education. So we started realizing that colleges were looking to gaming and esports to do recruiting. So we had this idea, this really came up because we were meeting with schools, and they were saying, well, we're having a hard time recruiting. Like Eastern Michigan said that, Kentucky said that. So we created this whole network where we did like Super Smash tournaments for high school kids to connect with the gaming clubs at the schools. We did all these different gaming events in key cities and key high schools in which they were doing recruiting. And we kind of created this spotlight for alumni from the schools who were being successful in gaming. And we signed a bunch of schools up to be part of this program. And it really helped the schools because they were able to say, now you don't just have to come here because of football or basketball. You can come here because you'll have this long-term esports career. I also did deals with Penn and Penn Relays, where during COVID, the Penn Relays were shut down. So we actually recreated the Penn Relays in Minecraft. And we had people bring their Minecraft characters to the game. We live streamed it on Twitch. We had Carl Lewis, who's like a famous Olympian, doing the broadcasting. And we recreated the Penn Relays inside Franklin Field. Like, this is what it really looks like inside the game. And then we took that and we did that with a bunch of different things. Like we did Among Us with the Winklevoss twins. If you guys seen The Social Network, like they started this thing called Gemini, which is cryptocurrency exchange. And then with Conoco, we worked with University of Colorado and Montana, and we had them recreate their campus and put like a Conoco gas station, and we did a Minecraft build. So all these things, like you'll see throughout my career, like I'm on the sponsorship and sales side, but I've never been like, oh, here's this like bucket thing that you should buy, and it's like completely, I'm selling it to 1,000 different people and you should buy it too. Like all the different things that I've like been passionate about and I've tried to work at is like really think, okay, who's the brand? What do I have? And how do I create something that kind of fits what I'm hearing from them, is of interest? And if you can be creative, you can be fun, you can execute on that, you can do a lot of things that people will like, and they'll continue to renew, and it'll be unique and different because it's more fun. It's different than just buying Google AdWords. You'll have to like fight against Google AdWords and like, make sure that your thing is still like efficient versus theirs. But I've always been able to win deals and generate money for my companies by being creative and being able to execute. So that was another thing that I'd say to everybody is like, no matter which field you go into, like your ability to listen and turn it into creative solutions, whether it's for your team, your boss, your professor, your colleagues, those are things that can separate you and help you like succeed. From there, I ended up being the CEO of Immortals, and we launched this whole new relaunch of a Great Lakes focused initiative. We thought that in general, like the gaming sphere was like too Southern California focused. So we started activating in a different region, and we started bringing our teams and our players and influencers to Detroit, Ann Arbor, East Lansing, Chicago, Cleveland. And we started talking to students, and they were saying, well, we're not really interested in like esports, which is kind of consistent with the hands I saw today. We just want like fun gaming experiences that we can hang out with our friends. So we just started, showing up on college campuses at bars, restaurants, taco places, boba shops, and had gaming experiences for people to kind of get together. It was all free. It was all Immortals sponsored. Riot came in and wanted to be part of it because they create the games. And we were able to like start building up this groundswell of attention because there was no professional esports teams in our region. So we were in Chicago during LCS. Basically, we had pregame parties and we had takeovers at all these different parks, and then we would bus people to the games, or they could hang out at our spot and watch League of Legends championships. So that was ways that we found, okay, how do we creatively engage a community and give them something? It's not enough to just say we're representing the region. We have to actually show up in the region. And that's why you'll see kind of like our jerseys here. These are the jerseys from last year. They were like Great Lakes inspired Northern Lights. And then the last kind of thing I'll say before I open the questions is just like, if you're interested in gaming and esports, some suggestions for how you can get started is like, and these are all free suggestions. Join your university's esports and gaming club. Like we directly hire people from gaming clubs, and we love to see like people who are involved on campus in some type of gaming capacity. Start your own Twitter, LinkedIn, Discord, Twitch. Like just start talking about esports stuff. Like it's weird. You can message esports companies, you can message sports companies, but esports better. They'll respond and they'll be interested. Like we knew who our super fans were. We knew who people who would engage with us. Like that was not possible 10, 15 years ago. And it's free to start these accounts. You can do it as a side account and just kind of set it up. Think about networking across, up and down for your entrepreneurial pursuits. Don't just focus on like, okay, I have to talk to the CEO of this company, or I have to talk to this president. Like, it doesn't always work like that. You can actually network amongst your own peers and at lower levels because people are going to rise up and you want to rise with them. And the best thing is try something. Like whenever I would interview someone, I could tell they were really, really good, but if they never like put themselves out there to try something, it was harder for us to hire them. Like it was always better, even if it failed, even if it sucked, even if nobody ever listened, putting yourself out there and like trying an idea or starting an account or trying to start something amongst your friends, that'll always kind of get you going. This is like in Major League Baseball, one of the ways I got my start in gaming was I volunteered to do this Facebook game called MLB Ballpark Empire. And the game ended up not being great, but I was the one who volunteered to do it. And I got a lot of experience on it. And I was able to say, like, I took this risk by getting involved. It was like a Farmville type baseball game. I took this risk by, latching on to this trend of Farmville and helping Major League Baseball find its way. And that helped differentiate me as someone who was willing to like embrace new technologies and deliver something for the company at large. So these are like 4 main things I think are really important if you're interested in getting involved now that you can do for free, essentially starting today. I have a bunch more slides and stuff. I know we're kind of up against time and I want to give people questions. So maybe I'll pause for a minute.
Yeah, sounds good. Who's got questions for Jordan?
Can be sports, esports, general.
Do you game yourself? Are you a gamer?
I do. So I actually grew up doing Sega, whatever. I'm born in 1986. It is what it is. And Sega was like the big game for me. So sorry. I don't know. Is that me? I was pulling my TikTok. Jesus. Okay. So Sega was like the first game that I was playing. And I actually started doing NHL 94 tournaments for Major League Baseball. And what was interesting about that was I started getting all these different like executives wanting to come to my like Sega tournaments, like 16 to 32 person tournaments. And it was a great way for me like to network and get to know different people at a really large company. And then from there, it kicked off, like I always did sports games. We had a Fortnite team, we had Valorant. I was started to learn League because we had one of the 10 LCS teams. And we would play, like we'd have game nights, like as part of our company and things like that. But one of the things that I thought was really good was like, I really tried to focus on like using that gaming to like help me from a networking and business perspective. So the answer is yes. And I think it can help you in your future if you continue to game, but I would think about ways to like use it as a way to connect with other people as well, not just friends.
Cool, thank you.
Jordan, I got a question for you, and one that I think is probably a pretty obvious question. What was the biggest differences between working in sort of traditional stick and ball leagues versus esports?
Yeah, so both have like their advantages. Like I loved being at a property like baseball or an NBA that like everybody knows and they can count on, and that like, you know, the teams and the infrastructure and the World Series and all that. Well, on the flip side, esports is a little bit harder because there's so many different things. So there's influencers, there's all these different leagues, there's all new games coming up, there's different regions. It's harder to like explain to people what it is. The flip side though of that is that like it's really hard to get things through on baseball and basketball because there's so much history. So like I was working on a pitch clock. I don't know how you guys are familiar with baseball, but they're going to a pitch clock this year. I was working on a pitch clock deal for MLB in 2012. So it was 11 years ago. And I was just pushing and pushing and pushing and like not getting anywhere. And now they finally did it and it's going to be great. Whereas in esports, it was like open. I was like, we should do a women's Fortnite team. At Immortals, we started a Valorant team, or we should get into Wild Rift, or we should hire this influencer. Like you can turn it around more quickly. So for some people like going to bigger corporations because there's like safety in numbers and there's a lot of people and like, you know, there's going to be a baseball game the next day. And some people like working in esports or in startups where there's more volatility and you're not necessarily sure if the company's going to be around forever, but if it hits, you can win big. And also if you are excited about building something that's like reflective of you, you have that freedom of doing it. So I'd say for all you guys, is like you look to jobs or careers or whatever, think about what type of industry you would feel most comfortable in. Are you more of a risk taker and you want to like build something with a smaller group? Or do you like being part of a bigger thing, which is good, and like being able to thrive in that type of setting where there's more structure?
Okay, sounds great. Who else has questions here? I know everybody should have questions.
How's it like working for like a company that's like more like internationally based and like working with like people from like other countries? I guess like compared to like an NA club.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. So I grew up in like Michigan, and like I didn't even go to California until I was 25. So, and I didn't go to Asia until I was in Gen G. And so I started like, first I read a book about like Korean culture because like I needed to learn. I never had like Korean food or anything like that. And I started loving it. It was amazing. Like it opened me up to like all these different like experiences. And this is kind of like a morbid answer, but I think it's kind of important. Like So like the day Kobe Bryant died, like my colleagues in Korea were just as upset as my colleagues in LA. And they were like, sad and crying. And in a weird way, it kind of like brought and China too. I mean, they were just really, really sad. And in a weird way, it kind of like brought everybody together because we had so many like shared experiences and feelings over something, even though it was so traumatic and sad, like it brought us closer because we were all experiencing it together. And that was like a really big like life lesson that I think I learned. Like, and I would, every time I go over there, I'd have like the best time because I wanted to like embrace that world. And when they came over to LA, it was important to me that like, I was like, what do you guys want to do? Like, I'll take you wherever you want to go. Like you should enjoy your time here. So I would say, of course, there's going to be at times there's like language barriers when you deal with international companies. But if you're working, especially in the gaming space, but if you're working with an office and you're lucky enough at your company, you have people in different offices. It doesn't have to be Korea, China. I mean, it could be Europe, South America, whatever, Middle East. I would really encourage you guys to get to know those people because you have more in common with them than you probably think. And they can be lifelong friends. And if you ever get the opportunity to travel to those areas or they come to you, you'll have like a built-in infrastructure for things to do. Like when my Korean colleagues come to LA, they really cared about like food. They wanted to like hamburgers was like a really big thing. So we'd go like a hamburger tour and pizza. And when I went to Korea, I really wanted to play basketball. So they sent me up and we played basketball at a great park. And I was the only American playing with all these Korean guys. And that was really fun too. So I would say if you have that opportunity, definitely embrace it.
Okay, good question. Who else got a question? I knew there was a couple of you at the same time.
Yeah, I was wondering, so I know Immortals does a lot of like Valorant stuff and I believe League of Legends. Are you guys gonna like switch into, or not switch, but are you guys gonna adopt like Call of Duty League and other like gaming leagues like that?
Yeah. So how many people are like familiar with like esports, how the leagues are structured in general? Okay. So I'll kind of back up. So there's the people who create the games like Activision or Riot. And about 6-7 years ago, they were like, we're going to create these leagues and we're going to put really high buy-ins on them. And a lot of companies, Immortals included, went out and they raised money from investors and they said, esports is the next sports. Give us, 25, 30, 50, $100 million. And we're going to buy these franchises in these leagues. And they're going to be like buying a football team in the 50s or the 60s. And a lot of teams raised a lot of money and spent like between 25 to 50 million on like buying a League of Legends spot. So you can be one of 10 teams in the North American League of Legends League, or one of 12 teams in Call of Duty, or one of 25 in Overwatch. And I think what's they were banking on is like younger people like rooting for these teams as if they were the Dallas Cowboys or the 49ers or the Clippers. And I mean, I don't know, just by the show of hands there, like my assumption is that most people here aren't like grinding on Overwatch standings or Call of Duty as a league. You might be playing or following your favorite streamer or influencer, but you may not necessarily be doing appointment viewing for watching the game. And that's your right to do whatever you want to do for entertainment. And I don't blame you, whatever you want to do. But for a lot of people like Immortals and other teams, they were left kind of holding the bag on these large franchise fees. And that's even before you factor in player costs, coaching costs, prize money. And then it hasn't really developed in terms of like actually extracting money from consumers. And I think esports teams can do a much better job of doing memberships, subscriptions, ticketed events, better with merchandise, different ways of like getting money from a consumer. If you think about the Clippers, we could get money from people in 15 different ways. Concessions, parking, tickets, merchandise, local TV, national TV, social media. That didn't really exist for esports. So one of the reasons why you're seeing a lot of teams being more hesitant to enter into these franchise leagues right now is because it's really hard to turn a profit on it. And if you end up doing it where you don't pay as high salaries as everyone, you get flamed by the community for being cheap. So you're kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. You can go to your investors and raise a bunch of money and spend it, and be viewed by the community as these people really care, but you're going to run out of money. Or you could be more conservative with your funds and your investments, but be flamed by the community for not having, like, not caring enough or not being in enough games. So I think that's like what a lot of the executives are dealing with right now. And I think the hard part of it is, like, there's just no clear answer, because the infrastructure for, like, extracting money from people isn't really built yet. Another thing between sports and esports is, like, the NBA doesn't have to worry about, like, a dude perfect or like a trick shot artist taking away from the NBA finals. Whereas for you guys, like, you guys might prefer watching like Mr. Beast or Dr. Disrespect or whoever your favorite streamer is instead of Call of Duty League. And that's an issue when you have to worry about, like, the integrity of your game itself being less interesting than just somebody playing it on the internet. Like, we don't live stream pickup basketball at the YMCA. People aren't interested in that. But in gaming, like, they kind of are. So all that adds to the complexity of the industry.
Yeah, we actually talked about that last week in terms of the idea that fans are more interested in individual gamers than they are actually the teams or the in some cases the leagues that they play in. So yeah, that's interesting that you said that, because do you think there will ever be a time where there will be this sort of civic pride because it's regionalized and this is the team that you root for, like you would a traditional sport?
I would ask the students that. I mean, I'd love to hear their feedback, and just as consumers.
Right.
What do you guys think? I mean, does anybody here follow leagues? And if you don't, why not? And feel free, you're not going to offend me. I'm sure JP's going to be okay with it too.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of things I like to do is, like, ask people, because, like, I want to make sure I'm not just in my own head with this stuff. So, like, what do you guys think?
Kind of like need a team. Like, growing up, you would need a team to, like, focus on, and it would have to be more of like a versus, like, teams in the other states kind of that you could compete against. Like, you'd be rooting for, that's why you would watch if you were watching your team play against somebody else's team or something like that.
So, Kevin, where are you from?
Around here, like 20 minutes from here, 30 minutes
So
from.
if there was like a local team, do you feel like you would potentially support it because they're on your location? Or
Yeah, I feel like it would be more of a, I mean, I'm personally not huge into esports, but I felt like if there's a lot of people that are, and if somebody who was big into esports had a team around them that they watched, and let's say they were playing New York, I feel like they would probably watch it more than if they were playing just some other group, basically, if that makes sense.
what about, like, on the college side? Would you guys feel more inclined to root for people at your own school versus maybe someone on the pro side? Or do you feel like you don't care as much about people at your own school, or you maybe want to, like, beat the people at your own school?
I'd say it
I
depends,
think-
I guess. Oh, sorry, you could go.
Go ahead, you got.
I was just gonna say, I think it depends. I don't think I would necessarily like it more than individual content creators, but I think it would be cool. Like, there would be a sense of pride that comes along with it. Same thing with, like, the basketball team. But a point that I was gonna bring up is, I think when our generation gets a little bit older and we have kids, I think then we can then get them into esports, and then it will be more widely adopted. But yeah, that was just kind of.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Evan. I mean, it's interesting what you say about content creators, because a lot of the universities that I was consulting with, I worked with Penn, Northwestern, Eastern Michigan, Kentucky. I was recommending to them to give scholarships not just to esports people, but to content creators, and have them create, like, just daily vlogs or whatever type of content, TikToks about, like, being at that school. Because part of the thesis was that, like, recruiting and people wanting to go to school can actually be achieved on the high school level if you were giving content creators the opportunity to, like, tell their own story. And I would show this, like, day in the life at University of Miami YouTube that did really well, that a kid just made, like, for a class. It hasn't, like, completely taken off, and it may not. But I always thought that was kind of interesting too, because for whatever reason, I think people's tastes just go towards creators. And I think that's kind of just the economy we're in now, like the currency. And also people feel like the creators, like when I listen to someone that I podcast that like, there's this guy that I listen to a lot on a podcast, and I listen to him all the time. And then I felt like I knew him, because I was listening to him. I felt like he was my friend. And then I went to like a meet and greet, and he looked at me, and I was a complete fucking stranger to this guy. And I was like, it was just so weird that like, I felt like he was like going to give me a big hug, cause like, I thought we had this like great relationship, but he doesn't know me. So my point is that like, you build this like closeness to these creators because of the platforms that you don't actually know. And I think in a weird way that hurts the esports ecosystem a little bit, unless you can actually find a way to be connected to the players themselves. But the players have shorter lifespans. Like LeBron's been playing for 20 years. You don't really see that in esports.
I think it's tough with esports too, because you have the content creators, like they're really good at like entertaining and connecting with their audience. So, with the esports, it's sort of like lacking, not the entertainment aspect of it, but they're like talking to you the whole time, during like a stream or whatever. So I think that's like another good way that they connect with their people.
It's a very good point. I mean, the pro gamers are so dialed in during competition that they can't be as entertaining as a streamer can be, who's like intentionally supposed to be entertaining and is trained to be theatrical, artistic, and multitasking. And that's what makes it interesting. So yeah, I completely agree with that point. I mean, I feel like some of these like smash events and fighting of tournaments, like games where you can be a little bit more casual, or at least meet the people in person, maybe can help over time. But I agree. I think that's hurting the esports scene, is that you have these pro gamers that are just completely locked in, and somewhat understandably so, because they're playing for prize pool, they're playing for salary, and they can't be as entertaining as we probably need them to be to engage an audience. And then you don't develop a relationship with them.
Okay. Well, Jordan, we're kind of butted up against it. I do appreciate your time, and this was great. I thought this was a really great conversation, and I'm really happy that the students got an opportunity to interact with you. So if it's okay, I want to just make sure you're comfortable with them maybe reaching out to you on LinkedIn, connecting with you that way. Is that the best way?
For sure. Yeah. Here's my LinkedIn so you guys can see me. Add me. I'm always happy to chat. Like, just message me. We could chat back and forth if you're looking at something. If I know somebody, if you want a connection, if it makes sense, I can help out. In general, just like best of luck. Like, I remember being in your shoes, the same thing, and being like, some days being like, fuck, like, what am I gonna do? How's this gonna work out? But if you're just like you guys all were today, like if you're personable and you listen and you come to the table with good ideas and you're able to engage, a lot of people will talk to you on a lot of different forums these days. So feel free to add me and continue the conversation if you're interested.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Jordan. I do appreciate it. And hopefully we'll be in touch soon.
Thanks for having me, JP. Thanks all.
Thank you.